the Houthi rebels are supported by Iran, and that is absolutely clear. Iran also supports Hezbollah, their proxies in Lebanon and in the Middle East, and also Hamas. So the Houthis are getting technology and missiles and drones from the Iranians, and these are being used to attack shipping, Western shipping, American shipping, British shipping in the Red Sea. The Red Sea is a key communication line really between the East and the West going up through the Suez Canal. And we've seen over the last probably 18 months that the Houthis have been attacking shipping and really having a profound effect, because if ships have to avoid the Red Sea, they've got to go round the bottom of South Africa, adding weeks and weeks to their transit, which puts up the price of things. And what we've seen from the Americans, and particularly since Trump came to power, is he wants to avoid anything that's going to affect the American community. So a lot of goods coming from the East to the States, and also probably more importantly for Trump, going from the States to the East. If they can't go through the Red Sea, then it's going to increase the cost of those goods. And if they're attacked in the Red Sea, then, quite rightly, America is seeing that a direct attack on them. Now, the Houthis claim they're in support of Hamas and what's happening in Israel, but really they are. Their strings are being pulled by the mullahs in Tehran, by Iran. The other militias, Hezbollah in particular, have been pretty much destroyed in Lebanon, and Iran has suffered greatly. It doesn't have the power that it used to have, and at the moment, its main proxy to do this, to attack the US and Western allies, is through the Houthis. So it is not surprising that the Americans have done this. I think also it's a statement by the Americans, probably to the Russians as well, that they are prepared to use their firepower. One, in some of the discussions between the Americans and the Russians recently, not surprisingly, the Ukrainians have felt a bit left out in the cold. But I think the attacks over the last few days on the Houthis have demonstrated that President Trump is very happy and confident to use his military power when he decides it's the case. So I think this is what we're seeing with the Americans attacking the Houthis, probably harder than they've done in the last 18 months to stop the affecting the communication lines in the Red Sea, and as a message to the Iranians and the Russians that just because Trump's now president doesn't mean to say that he's not going to use the American military. But certainly recently they appear to be using exactly that, attack drones and missiles. These would have been supplied by the Iranians. The Iranians supply drones all over the place, and we've discussed before to the Russians as well. So that is what they're using. Their intelligence, I expect, is fairly rudimentary. If they see a ship, particularly a ship with a Western flag on it, in other words, owned by a Western nation like the US or the UK or European, then they attack it. And that, although they're not sinking a lot of these ships, they are damaging them. But psychologically, for those crews, it must be pretty horrific. And of course, shipping owners are not going to want to risk losing these ships that cost millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a fairly straightforward way. Previously the Houthis and others in that area used attack boats to try and attack ships, and we have seen the Houthis use helicopters to land on Western ships. But I think more recently it's been a focus on missiles and drones to not necessarily sink these ships, but make sure that the owners and the crew don't want to go anywhere near the Red Sea and have the impact that the Houthis are wanting to have. Their ultimate agenda and what they're trying to achieve is the same as the Iranians. They are using what is happening in Gaza as a reason for doing this and attacking Israel. I think they feel probably if they can attack Israel hard enough and the US hard enough, then the US might withdraw support from Israel. And it's common knowledge that the US support to Israel is fundamental to what's going on there at the moment. But I think one cannot decouple the Houthis from the Iranians. And of course, Iran running the axis of evil across the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Gaza. They really are looking to attack the US and the Israelis in that area. So it would, that is their fundamental what they're trying to achieve, to attack the states and Israel, so that their proxies and their masters in Tehran get what they want. It does seem rather binary, but these are another terror group, another Iranian militia, if you like, that are being controlled by Tehran. And it's nothing new, except the fact that the other militias, predominantly Hezbollah, have become ineffective. So the Iranians have focused on the Houthis, who still have a capability. And what they're doing in the Red Sea is really having a significant effect on world shipping and a significant effect on prices of goods heading east and west. I think this is the same, or almost the same, as about a year ago, when not only were the Americans attacking the Houthis who were firing on ships in the Red Sea, but we also had Iran launching over 300 missiles at Israel, and the US, and actually supported by the UK and French air forces as well, shot down all those missiles. So I don't think I don't think the Americans can kind of back down because what the Houthis are saying. It's really whether the Americans can, have a significant effect on Houthi capability. Now, last year, the Americans certainly did, because the attacks on shipping reduced significantly. It would appear that in that time, maybe the Houthis are rebuilding their capability. The Iranians have been supplying more missiles and drones and weaponry to them. So it's almost the next wave of attacks. One would expect to see the US continue and increase, and it will come a stage where the Houthis become less effective and will either regroup or will stop. So I wouldn't have thought the Houthis can escalate much more, and it will probably turn into a war of attrition. It's a question of how long it will take the US to write down the Houthi capability so that it is ineffective. But as we saw over the last year or so, they go silent and rebuild. It might well be that the US consider a more detailed and comprehensive operation to denude the Houthis of capability in the future. But at the moment, it seems to be limited. Limited might be the wrong word, to an air campaign. But the Americans could escalate it and maybe put forces on the ground as well. But there's no suggestion that the Americans are going to that extent at the moment.